Community Center. We are located, of course, in the 5 Washington Street main Newark Library. And in these difficult times, unfortunately, we are not operating in the building, but as with everyone else, we have created our virtual world and our virtual center. And so we are happy to be celebrating with Newark Pride 2020. Happy Pride, everybody. You can find us, of course, at Newark LGBTQ Center.org. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, and we are also on Instagram. If you feel so inclined, we are an organization that depends majority of our operating revenue comes from donations from our community and for people who support the work that we do. Some of the things that we were offering prior to COVID, as we had yoga on Saturdays, we had an adult game night. We had just reopened our center in the library in May of 2019 and had started doing programming again. And then of course, COVID came in and kind of caused us to create a new reality for ourselves as a center and as a community. And so we thank you for staying with us during these trying times. Keep an eye out for future programming to come. Of course, all of our events right now will be virtual. And having said that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jewel.
Thank you, Bia. With that being said, we are here for the star of the evening, Tobly McSmith, and he is the author of the book titled Stay Gold. And so hopefully by the end of this, we can all learn how to stay gold. So Tobly, can you please, get into your book and brief everyone on what it's about? Nice cover, Denise. Yeah. I see you.
Yeah, here's the cover too. Closer. Here we go.
Beautiful.
Hold it up. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. Hi, I'm Tobly. I want to introduce you to one of my cats who's here. Here's Bananas. Look at this little kitty. He's joining the Zoom. Hi, Bananas.
Hey, Bananas.
He likes drinking from the water fountain and chasing red dots. So glad he could also join and support here. Nice. Okay, well, thank you. I wanted to first thank you. It's an honor to be here for the Newark Pride. I love Newark. I fly out of there often, and I also go to visit Audible, which is a great company there too. So I'm so happy to be here and in coordination with the library, which I love very much. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about my book and tell you about it. I'm gonna read a few passages. I have kind of a short attention span, so I'm not gonna read a long amount at once because I would lose interest in my own self. So I'm gonna read a few parts of it to kind of bring you into the book. We can take some questions, and then our buddy Perez Hilton's gonna jump on and talk about his book and wish everyone Pride too.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a party. Watch out.
All right, Pride. It's party up. It's party for the whole summer.
Love it. I love it. Party indoors, right? Okay, so Stay Gold, as mentioned, is a young adult novel. It is set in Texas. That is where I grew up. It is a love story between Pony. He is a transgender boy who is transferred to a new high school, and he's decided to go stealth or hide his gender identity. And Georgia, the girl here, she is a cheerleader at that high school. She's kind of reached the peak of popularity, but realized that's not at all what she wants in life. And this is a love story. There's plenty of will they or won't they and possible kissing and couple kissing, but it's also a serious book centered around a lot of serious transgender issues. You know, when I started writing this 2 years ago, I didn't see enough books with my story in it. I didn't see a transgender guy getting dead named or misgendered or wearing a chest compression binder and saving up for his gender affirming surgery. And I didn't see a lot of books about having to come out and talking about the issues.
Hello.
Whoa.
Hello, 17th Street. How are you?
Welcome,
everyone.
Those are some of our youth from Good Shepherd programs.
Hey there.
Welcome, Good Shepherd Youth. Thank you for joining us.
Hey.
Currently, we have the author. He just started speaking on the background of his book. He may be able to do a quick brief for you all since you have such a large number of youth with you and you guys joined us right on time.
Nice. What's up, 17th Street? Looks fun. Okay, so just to recap, Stay Gold is a book I wrote. It's my debut novel. It's a young adult novel set in Texas between two high school kids, one of them named Pony, who's transgender and concealing, going stealth or hiding his gender identity in a new school in Georgia, a cheerleader at that school. So I grew up in Texas too, and that's a big reason why I set this book there. You know, living in New York is amazing. It's very open-minded, but Texas, especially when I grew up in the 90s, was very, very different. And Pony and I have so much in common, the kid in the book. We have gone through a lot of the same stuff, but when I was in high school in the 90s, people didn't talk about transgender issues. I hadn't met a transgender person. And I actually, I looked this up, but it wasn't LGBT until 1995 when I was 15, which is kind of wild. So that's about the same age as the character in the book. So we've come such a beautiful, long way, but it was very confusing and hard for me growing up in Texas. You know, I knew I didn't want to wear dresses. I hated barrettes. I hated all these things. I wanted to play with the boys. Like, everything was there showing me that I was trans, but there was no role models at that time. There was no literature or books or barely any movies about it. So there was just no way to learn about it, which is what is so encouraging about now, how many books and movies and TV shows there are featuring transgender characters and how they continue to be there, which is amazing. I went to college in Lubbock, Texas, which is in the very top of Texas. It's like there's a Bible Belt that goes through the United States, and Lubbock, Texas is like the buckle of this Bible Belt, right? So it was a fun college to go to. We partied a lot. There was not much to do in Lubbock, Texas, but drink and look at cows and stuff. But it was also like a really hard place to figure out who I was. My campus, my college had an LGBT group. So I went online to look at that group and see what they were doing. And the website actually had a panic button that you could push. And when you pushed it, the website turned into an Excel document and hid that you were even looking at the website. And for me in Lubbock, Texas, that was what it was like. You had to hide your identity, hide that you were different because it wasn't accepted, which was really tough, you know? And so one day when I was looking, I had to go get some schoolwork done. So I went to a public library in Lubbock, and I walked in there and I actually felt like it was okay to walk around, and it was like no one was judging me in this library. And I kind of wandered over and I looked at the LGBT section, and I was able to look at some books. I wouldn't check them out, but I'd read them there. And I felt really safe in this library. And I started reading biographies from comedians, especially in Saturday Night Live. And I got really interested in that. And I dreamed of moving to New York. So right when I graduated from Lubbock, Texas, I left it and I moved up to New York, which is way more open-minded, you know, than Lubbock, Texas. And I started writing parody musicals. So they're musicals that are parodies on TV shows. And me and my best friend, he's actually on this right now, Bob, we have written 9 parody musicals. We've covered Saved by the Bell. We did 90210. We did a Kardashians musical that was the Kardashians. It was telling the story of the Kardashians through Cats, the musical. And we got sued by Andrew Lloyd Webber, which was kind of a bummer. But we've done Friends and The Office, and it's been a really amazing experience. And about 2 years ago, I had a day job at this time. I was working in publishing, and I started to hear about the Own Voices, OWN. So they have initiative of Own Voices and people writing their stories. And I realized that I had a story to tell, being trans, growing up in Texas, and this story it was coming together. And I really, I sat down and wrote it, and Harper helped me write it. And then 2 years later, we have Stay Gold right here. So that was an amazing thing. I don't know about y'all, but I really love books. Books have been around my life for a very long time. My stepdad is actually a book binder, so he restores old books. And so I grew up around books, and my mom loves books. And I worked at the publishing press in Lubbock, Texas. We published books about paper dolls and coyotes. And that was about it. That was the entire list, the interests of Lubbock, Texas. And then I came here and I worked at Harper's. So I love talking about books. It's so amazing to have written one. And yeah, so I'm going to read a couple passages from Stay Gold, just so you can kind of get to know it. Okay. I'm going to start with the beginning. And it starts with Pony on his first day of school. And what I did here, you know, it's two people telling. So it's 2 point of view. So Pony tells half the story and Georgia tells the other half. And I did that because I wanted to show what it's like to be transgender and to be going through all the thoughts and the feelings and dealing with the problems and joy of it. But I also wanted to show Georgia's side of her getting to know someone that's transgender and having them come out to them and dealing with that. So I really wanted to write from both perspectives. And Pony loves movies. That's his big interest. And so the first couple pages aren't like most. He kind of feels it out like a movie script, which is kind of something I do when I'm in a really scary situation, like a first day somewhere. I feel almost removed from it, and like I try to be a writer because it's so much to engage with. So this first part is kind of written like a movie. All right. Fade in, exterior parking lot. The imaginary director calls action and the scene opens on New Kid standing alone in his car on the first day of school. He checks his hair in the rearview mirror. There's hesitations in his actions, a nervous fidget. New Kid takes a breath, then gets out of his car. Did the wardrobe department dress New Kid correctly for the scene? He's wearing an untucked black button-up short sleeve shirt and dark blue jeans. His go-to black skater high Vans. He studies his reflection in the window of the car. When nervous, I can use too much hair product. I mean, the hairdresser can. But today it all works. He puts on his backpack and pauses to take in the new school from across the parking lot. New Kid needs to show up earlier to get a closer spot tomorrow. Hillcrest High is an average Texas school. I've seen enough schools. My dad is in the Army. We've moved 5 times to know what's average. Standard issue, double-decker, big box school with faded red bricks and black-white trim. Manicured bushes and trees line the sidewalk. Yellow buses line the curb, and an American flag dances proudly over the 2 huge red doors. From the outside, there's nothing special about Hillcrest. New Kid makes his way through the massive parking lot. There's a stiffness to his walk. Sweat covers his forehead from the Texas heat. New Kid goes unnoticed by the students in the parking lot. They're too busy reuniting with friends and showing off their first day looks. And New Kid isn't the kind of guy who turns heads. But if they were to look my way, what would I want them to see? Nothing more than an average guy of average height and average build doing average guy things, living in an average guy life. That's why Hillcrest High School is perfect for me. We are both striving for the ordinary. So that's kind of how it starts. And he goes along and he walks up, he makes it to the school and he sees Georgia. So I'm going to read a little of that. This is his first time to see Georgia. He sees her from the top of the steps and she's in her cheerleading outfit because they have to wear that on the first day of school. At the top of the steps, New Kid turns around and scans the yard from an elevated position. He feels victorious. There are so many new faces, possible new friends, possible new girlfriends. Before turning back around, New Kid spots a girl in the crowd, the cheerleader. She's beautiful and bored, holding pom-poms and talking to another cheerleader. For no reason but fate, the cheerleader's eyes find his. Light shift, big music swell. Everyone on the lawn disappears. Extreme close-up on the eyes of New Kid, extreme close-up on the eyes of the cheerleader. They float up to the clouds, never once breaking eye contact. The world fades away below, and there's only him and her because she's the love interest and no one else matters. Pony's kind of a dreamer, right? And then it cuts right to Georgia, and she says, whoever that guy was, I think our eyes just made out. So she's a little more funny. So that's the first day, and they kind of go on their way there. And then I'm going to cut to, so Pony goes home, and Pony's father is in the military, and he is really struggling to accept Pony. I don't read that part, and it kind of follows through the line of the whole book. And the mom wants to understand and accept, but really has trouble with the dad. But anyways, so Pony goes up to his room, and I love to read this part because it talks about him dealing with his chest compression binder, which is something that I wore for many years before I was able to get my gender affirming surgery. And I just had never read a book that talked about the chest compression binder. So this part always is meaningful to me. All right, it's page 53. If you're reading along, Denise. After finishing dinner and clearing the plates, I head upstairs to my room and kick off my shoes. I find myself in the full-length mirror and watch as I unbutton my shirt, revealing my binder. I wear it under my clothes to smooth out my chest. Gender-affirming compression binders come in all shapes and sizes. The most popular fit looks like a sports bra, but I prefer the more masculine tank top. It's basically a medical bandage undershirt made of thick polyester that's so tight it restricts breathing and squishes my organs together. Exactly what you want to wear for 12 hours on a hot summer day. I've read stories about trans men developing medical issues from wearing cheap binders for too long. Serious stuff like collapsed lungs and broken ribs. To me, it's worth the risk. No matter how much I complain about these polyester torture traps, I wouldn't leave my house without one on. Binders have become my protective layer, my second skin, my shield that makes me feel safe and more myself. This is the discomfort I put myself through to feel more comfortable. The term everyone is using now is gender dysphoria. It's a fancy way of describing the stress of being in the wrong body. The level of dysphoria that a transgender person feels varies and often causes depression, anger, insecurity, and sometimes suicide. I bind my chest to ease my discomfort. Chest binders aren't a solution to my dysphoria, just an incredibly uncomfortable Band-Aid. The solution is top surgery, which I would need to rob a bank to afford. So Pony is saving up for his gender affirming surgery, and halfway through writing this book, it was April of 2019, Trump banned military people from, Trump banned transgender people from the military. And that was like a devastating blow for our community. And they pointed to the high cost of gender affirming surgeries for the reason to do that. And it was just kind of this awful, defeating moment. And I'm writing this book about this kid who's saving up for his surgery. And I realized there's just not enough awareness around it. So with this book, I've also launched the Stay Gold Fund. And what we're doing is we're providing financial assistance for gender affirming surgeries for transgender and non-binary people. Not every trans and non-binary person needs gender affirming healthcare, but for those who do, the prices are high. Insurance is always trouble. There's a lot of barriers, right? So we're going to be there to help fund these. And it's also to raise awareness, because when people don't have access to the healthcare they need, it does bring on more depression. It's shown to bring on more suicide. So we are really there to help with that. And if you want more info on that, it's staygoldfund.org. And I'm giving half of the money I make from this book and raising money. We're halfway to our first goal, which will allow us to take applications, which I'm really excited about. So that's a real important part to me. All right, moving on. So I wanted to read a part where Georgia and Pony are hanging out. It turns out they have every class together. Somehow the schedules align perfectly, which is always kind of fun when you have a crush on someone to be around them a lot, but it can also be kind of stressful to see them in every class. And then when it's on again, off again, and there's a little fight or something, then you have to see the person in every class. But they definitely like it. So this is in their science class. And this is told from Georgia's perspective. Right, the class has started and Mr. Glover is warming up his pun game. Bunsen burner, get it? Hey, that was a chemistry joke. Why no reaction? Guys, I'm in my element here. Lots of puns, get ready for it. I have 0% focus. I lean over to Pony. He's in the zone, the pun zone. I'm worried, Pony says. I think this is a cry for help. I laugh, maybe a little too loudly. Mr. Glover hears me and takes it as validation that his jokes are landing. They aren't, but it's endearing. I have kept my distance from Pony all day, but it's impossible in Chem Lab. We sit 2 feet away from each other. I look over at him. He's got piercing green eyes. You okay, Georgia? He asks. Yes, of course, I say, a little too defensively. He doesn't know me. Why would he wonder if something was wrong? Cool, he says, then returns his focus back to Mr. Glover. A few minutes later, I elbow him. Did you know that dinosaurs actually had human skin? You don't say, he asks. I do say. Have you seen any pictures of dinosaurs? Pixar didn't happen, Pony. Well, scientists have devoted their life to this kind of research, but please continue. Shh, I quiet him. I've read reports that dinosaurs have feathers. Feathers, Pony, how fancy. Pony tilts his head. Didn't the Guardian prove that wrong? That's the sexiest thing a guy has ever said to me. I think I saw that, I lie. Do you believe in the first moon landing? Pony asks. No, I say, because I don't. He smirks at me. I know exactly who you are, Georgia. You don't know anything about me, I say, returning his dumb smirk. Mr. Glover interrupts. I'm sorry, is my class too boron for you two? That was another pun. We both look up at the teacher with immediate focus and remain still like wild animals caught eating garbage. Hey, Mr. Glover, Pony yells loudly. What do solids, liquids, and gases have in common? Mr. Glover thinks for a moment, then takes the bait. What? They all matter, which is another pun. There's like 20 puns, I just said. Pony says, and the class laughs a little, but Mr. Glover cracks up. It might be the funniest thing he's ever heard. I'm stunned. Pony is full of surprises. Mr. Glover collects himself. Now, student, let's talk about mitochondria. After it's safe to look away, Pony shifts his attention to writing in his notebook, and I'm left to think about what I don't want to think about. I pull out my bag and conceal it under my desk. I hope Anthony's text and stare at the screen, unsure of how to respond. Anthony is her ex-boyfriend. The drama of it all, right? Pony slides a note over to me with a mischievous smile. A written note, how old-fashioned. I drop my phone in my lap and watch Mr. Glover do the Macarena while singing Hi Mitochondria. I don't think he'll notice. I unfold the paper and it's a drawing of a T-Rex that looks like Mr. Glover, same mustache and everything, covered in feathers and standing on the moon. I start to laugh but cover my mouth. Pony has a big smile with bright burning eyes. I put my hand on his shoulder to push him away, but that's not what I want at all. There's an electricity between us, like the shock from clothes fresh out of a dryer. I let my hand fall down his arm. We both turn our attention towards the teacher while we just did something wrong. Yeah, so there's all the puns you need for the day, right there. So I'm gonna read one more section. Does anyone have any questions or anything? How we doing 17th Street? Am I keeping y'all awake? Nice.
There's at least one question in there we'll get to when you're done.
Okay, or we could do it now just to give me a little break from reading.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the question that they had was, they said, I'm a youth at 17th Street who would like to write a book. I would like advice on how to write my life so far growing up.
Oh, that's awesome. I am glad you are already thinking of that because the story you have to tell is important. I would say just start writing it, right? It's going to take some time. It took me a year of writing every day for 5 hours to get this done, but you just have to put in the time and believe that it's worth it, right? You know, I didn't let anyone read this until it was kind of all the way done too, because I just needed it to be my story without a lot of input, but everyone is so different about how they write and how they want input, right? Maybe you want your friend to read it and say, I don't like this part, I like this part, you know, but really it's about just finding that time, a couple hours a day, 1 hour a day, right before you go to bed, right before you wake up, to write it. So it's just about sitting down and actually doing it.
What if I already wrote half of it and it's so far, it's okay. And I have my friends read it here at GSS, well, 2 of them. And they say it's good so far, but I think it's not. Like,
Welcome to writing. I think that everything I write is bad. So it is okay to have that self-doubt. It's always there. It's always there. I promise you. I think you just got to keep going, right? Because if you're halfway there, you got to write the second half, and that's going to help you know what to fix in the first half too. But don't believe that any writer out there doesn't think that their writing isn't good either. It's a very normal feeling to have, for sure.
okay, thank you. So you live in New York now?
I do. I live in the East Village.
Oh, that's been there. That's close.
Yeah. Nice. Good question. I hope you keep writing.
Thank you. Are you live on Facebook?
What's that?
Are you live on Facebook right now?
I think we are live on Facebook. So
Yeah.
Hi,
you're live on Facebook too. Okay. I'm going to read. one and a half more things. So Pony, transgender boy, right? He has a friend whose name is Max, and Max is very out and proud with his trans identity. And Pony is very opposite of that. He's hidden about it. You know, he doesn't want to tell a lot of people. And so it's an interesting friendship they have. And I wanted to read the section. They meet at a Denny's in a small town called Denton, and they talk. So I'm going to read this part for you right now. This is from Pony's perspective. Okay. 20 minutes later, I pull into the IHOP. Sorry, it's an IHOP, not a Denny's. IHOP's better. 20 minutes later, I pull into the IHOP parking lot at 8 on the dot. As usual, I'm on time and Max is late. He goes to a liberal arts high school in Fort Worth, about an hour away from me, so we meet in the middle and try new restaurants in Denton. Max and I have different approaches to our trans identities. He is very out and proud, and I like to think that he's proud enough for the both of us. Max is always mentoring youth at the LGBT Center or disrupting public hearings. He has a blue mohawk, and most of his shirts have funny queer slogans. There are social justice buttons covering his jackets and an activist bumper stickers all over his car. It makes buying gifts for him easy. 10 minutes later, Max walks in and smiles, his lip piercing gleaming. I jump up and we hug. He lifts me off my feet and shakes me around like a baby. I'm a tiny guy compared to him. We sit down and laugh at how silly that must have looked. A feeling of relief washes over me. I'm happy to be here with my buddy. I really needed to talk to someone. If my binder allowed a deep breath, I would take it now. Our waitress saunters up to the table and asks what we want to drink. I muster up my most masculine voice and order a Diet Coke. He jots it down and turns to Max. And for the young lady, shots fired. Max doesn't miss an opportunity to educate someone about pronoun assumption or gender constructs or the best Black Mirror episode. Confrontation is not my thing. I freeze up and cover my face with the menu. If there's one thing that gets Max heated, it's being misgendered. I'll have a coffee, he says, then returns to the menu. She writes it down and walks off, smacking her gum. Max, are you feeling okay? Young lady, I ask. I know. I kept quiet for you, he says, winking. Thanks. Pony, if you absolutely must know the truth, he feigns frustration and throws his menu down. I came to the realization at Applebee's last week when the waitress set my soup down in front of me. Soup in the summer? You're a monster, I say, pretending to ignore the real issue. He continues, I decided that people who handle my food are always right until I have my food, and then and only then will I have a mature and adult conversation with them about their utter ignorance. But not a word until my soup is out of range of their spit. Or worse, I say. Or worse, he repeats. It's smart thinking. When you're seen as different, it's best to go with the flow, pick your battles, and plan the right times to push back. Our waitress returns with our drinks. Once she leaves, I raise my glass in a toast and say, but not too loudly, here's to being transgender in Texas. We clink glasses. Yeah, I definitely wrote that because it feels like that a lot. You have to be careful about the conversations you're having, especially if people can spit in your food. So I always thought that was fun to show. I have one more quick thing. Oh no, I lost it. I think I lost it. Oh, there it is. So here's another writing tip. I read in a book. So when I started writing, I was new to books, right? We'd written tons of musicals. I'd worked in books, but I never sat down and wrote a book. So I had to start at the beginning, and I did a lot of research, and I read Stephen King's book on writing. And he talked about how bringing alive one of the six senses helps pull people into a book, right? And I think he said, if you say you're peeling an orange, like everybody knows how it feels to peel an orange and to smell it, and that can bring you into a book. So if you can bring alive a sense to a person, like the heat that's pounding down or the loud sound, it really helps pull people in. So I made sure to write a lot about food in my book, especially because they go to a Sonic, which isn't here. I think they have Sonics in Jersey, right? They're like drive up burger. They have tots. They have tater tots with cheese all over them. They have slushies, like the best, right? But I wrote about chicken and dumplings, which is so a Texas food. But I also wrote about cinnamon rolls, and I wanted to just read this quick thing. It's by Georgia, right? So Saturday is the laziest day of the week. I have challenged myself to do as little as possible. Dad works on most Saturdays, so the house is all mine. I head downstairs in my sleep shirt and slippers to make a little breakfast. I'm a healthy eater most of the time, unless there's bacon in the vicinity. But on Saturday mornings, I make my guiltiest of pleasure, cinnamon rolls. Sticky, gooey, delicious, pure fat cinnamon rolls from those cylinder tubes that pop open when you twist them. The pop is so satisfying, and inside awaits raw cinnamon dough buns and a small plastic pot of frosting. I throw the little hockey puck biscuits on a nonstick pan and do a little cinnamon roll dance. I'm tempted to take a bite of the dough, but resist. I do have some self-control. So that many people have made cinnamon rolls after reading this book, and I have too. But that is just one way to bring people in for sure.
Nice, I love that. Thank you so much for joining us once again and reading that. So we do have 2 more questions in the chat, and we do have some questions that we wanted to ask you in general. I just want to check in with Beatrice and Denise. How much time are we working with? Can we do like 15 minutes of questions, or do we have to? Okay.
Sure. I mean, I think if Perez comes on, we'll let him speak when he comes, but yeah, we should get to those questions.
Yeah, and hopefully Perez will just jump on and say hello when he.
Oh, okay, awesome. So something I would like to ask is I'm asking from the chat on behalf of Kristen. And Kristen would like to know, as you transitioned, did you look to certain trans individuals such as authors, folks in the media, or people in your life for solace, strength, or inspiration?
That is a great question. And it's so exciting that more representation of trans is happening in the media. When I was growing up, the only movie was Boys Don't Cry, which is 20 years old and featuring a I forget, Hilary Swank is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really tough to only have that really to look up to. But as I was meeting people in New York, I formed a small community of supportive people. It took me some time to come around to it, but it was the people in my life. It was actually online chat rooms, online boards with supportive people talking about their experiences. I read those in Lubbock, Texas, when I was in Texas, and just seeing people have the same experience as me just made it more okay. And the more okay I felt about it inside, the easier it was to get closer to who I was. And you know, that's what Stay Gold means to me. It means staying true to yourself. And when it comes to trans and non-binary, coming out doesn't necessarily mean staying true to yourself. There's so many different ways to live as a trans or non-binary people. And also there's safety concerns about coming out in some issues too. So staying gold doesn't mean coming out, but it means staying true to yourself, whatever that means. And both Pony had to get there in his experience, and Georgia too.
Mm.
Beautiful. Kristen would also like to know, what do you think are the challenges that trans men specifically face?
That is a good question. I just see Perez entering too. We'll see.
All right now.
Oh, where's Perez? Hey, you're muted.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome to the party.
Broadcast. How long has the party been going on for?
About 55 minutes. We gave people a couple minutes to join.
Awesome.
And we're live on Facebook too. So you're broadcast around the world. So good to see you, Perez.
You too.
Yeah. So I invited Perez here because he was actually in one of our musicals. He was in Full House, the musical.
Wow.
And he was amazing. And we had the best year doing that. And all throughout that year, he would talk about his life. And it was the most interesting stories. And I begged him to write a book. And so I'm so happy that he did. So I want him to tell us about it.
Well, thank you. Wait, I should get the poster. Hold on. If you're under the age of 18, maybe close your eyes.
Uh-oh.
Wait, I got some kids under 18. Let them close their eyes.
It's not that. It's PG-13. It's not rated
They can
R.
handle it. I think they can handle it.
PG-13. So this is the book cover. It's called TMI: My Life in Scandal, and Tobly knows me very well, so he knows that I'm very honest always.
it was not my intention to write this, because I think with a lot of people, I am filled with a lot of self-doubt and insecurity. And I was always afraid to write a memoir, because if this flops, is that a reflection of me? That was a question that I would always ask myself. And it was something that I wasn't prepared for or ready for. So I tried to write a wellness book, which I still love the concept of. I had the title for it. It's called This Works. Isn't that a great book title? This Works. But it didn't work. Nobody wanted to publish my wellness book. So I had these really persistent and awesome Swedish gentlemen who said, your life is very interesting. We would love to work with you on an autobiography. And then I was like, all right, fine, whatever. Nobody wants to buy my wellness book. I've got nothing to lose at this point. So I thought I could still apply a lot of my thinking and what I wanted to accomplish with my wellness book towards an autobiography, which really is, I just want to inspire people, to lift them up, to show them that if they're going through a hard time, if they feel like they're constantly making mistakes, that that's not out of the norm, and that oftentimes mistakes are great. Mistakes are awesome. Not only do you learn from mistakes, but in my case, you can get a lot of attention from mistakes. And it's funny because I still carried with me, while working on the book, a lot of the doubt and a lot of the insecurity. As we were working on it, I was like, should we just cut out my whole childhood and college years? Let's just cut to the chase. Let's just start with all the celebrity stuff. And they really insisted, no, those formative years growing up in Miami, being closeted, being fat and dealing with that, growing up the son of 2 Cuban immigrants, all of that really shaped your life, your worldview, and it helped create Perez Hilton. So I think the book, it's definitely fun and funny and has some never before heard stories, and it'll absolutely appeal to people who are interested in celebrities. But also, you know, if you are the child of immigrants, if you've struggled with your weight as well, if you were closeted and that experience, there's a lot that is relatable to many different groups of people. And it was a very cathartic experience for me. I wouldn't say it healed me because, once again, in the spirit of honesty and transparency, I've made a lot of huge mistakes in my past, for which I carry with me a lot of regret and deep shame. It's very heavy baggage, which is also very public baggage. You know, I look at this screen of really beautiful and diverse individuals, and just by looking at you, I can't tell all your baggage. I don't know all the mistakes that you've made, but you know, I go through life constantly being held accountable for the sins of my past, and that's fine because I should be, I think. Or I feel like I did. I don't know. Maybe that's. I don't even know. I'm still working through my issues. I'm still a work in progress, like most of us are, right? I don't know if. Well, maybe Gloria Stefan. I think Gloria Stefan's got it all figured out. She's pretty close to perfect, but I'm still working through my issues, and I talk about also being a single gay dad of 3, which is crazy in and of itself. And it's even crazier these days, given everything going on in the world. I'm losing my mind with stress and anxiety and just the uncertainty of the future and knowing what's going to happen with school. But my kids put smiles on my faces every single day. And that was the best decision I ever made in my life, alongside starring in Full House the Musical, which I honestly, Tobly is a visionary and incredibly smart, because I made absolutely no sense whatsoever being Danny Tanner, but he's wacky like I am. So there was just something about the thought of me in his show. And also, I was a big fan of Tobly's work. I had seen 2 of his other shows, Showgirls the Musical, which truly is a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece. And the Bayside musical about Saved by the Bell. And I thoroughly enjoyed both of those. And if anybody out there wants to know how you can make a change in life or make something happen, it isn't always this easy, but there is something to be said about the power of the ask. Asking somebody for something is powerful. And maybe 9 out of 10 times, you'll get a door shut in your face or you'll get a no. But when you ask somebody for a favor or just to do something, they might say yes. You've got really nothing to lose. So I told Tobly, I was like, I would love to be in your show. And he's like, okay, I wish everything were that easy.
We wanted to be Mary-Kate and Ashley, but we ended up.
That would have been fun. Maybe in the future, if we ever do it again, I could be Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Nice.
So we do have a few questions for
In the box, yeah.
the author, Tobly. Just wonder if we can get some of those in, and maybe a few for Perez as well.
Okay, can you stick around, Perez?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Jewel?
Sorry, didn't think I was on mute.
Oh, that's okay.
So the last question that Kristen had was, do you think, I'm not sure if Tobly ended up being able to finish answering this. What do you think are some specific challenges that trans men face?
I think there's a lot right now for just trans people. I mean, our healthcare is under attack by Trump. Discrimination in the workplace, like there's so many issues in every part, in housing. And, there's been studies that more trans men attempt suicide and get depression because there's a masculinity in the world. And if I compare myself to it, sometimes I can get really down too. So I think that there's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of hardship, but that's why I wrote this book and I put it out and love to talk about it, because the more people know our stories and the things we have to deal with, the more they can understand us and accept us, for sure.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And to Perez, we would like to know, what are some challenges that you face as a single dad in the LGBTQ community? Like, how was it, adopting your first child and now having 3?
Well, I went the surrogacy route. So it was very involved. And in that option, it's also very expensive, incredibly expensive, and doing it 3 times, but worth it. Everybody creates family and whatever that word means to them in different ways. And that's how I explain it to my children, because they've always known that their family is different. I actually wrote a children's book called The Boy with Pink Hair. And one of my favorite lines, or I don't even know if I remember it, but it's about celebrating differences and how your differences make you special. And that's what I tell my kids. My mother, their grandmom, lives with us, which is different. In the Latino community, which I grew up in, it's not as rare. My grandparents lived with us as well. But I tell my kids, most children don't live in the same home as their grandparents. Your family is different than most, And that's awesome. Aren't you thankful that you get to live with your grandmother because she loves you so much and she's awesome? I feel really lucky and blessed to live in Los Angeles. So in many ways, I'm sheltered because I have a community of single gay dads that I can call upon. And I feel very welcome and accepted at my children's school. We're not the anomaly there. And it's so beautiful and wonderful to see, wow, there are other gay parents here. There aren't that many. It's not a plethora of them, but there's a handful. I definitely would love there to be more than a handful in an entire school, but as the years go on, I'm sure that it'll be even more and more common. But yeah, the whole concept of creating family and building community is so important and necessary for happiness and for mental health. And you can do that wherever you are. You know, being a parent is something that is universal. And when you become a parent, other parents do want to help, I think, for the most part. Some might go overboard and say, my way is the best way and whatever. No, every family does things their way, but I'm always open to suggestions and advice. And especially now, you know, we need that community and support because we're all going through unprecedented times.
For sure.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you so much for sharing. For Tobly, we have someone who is from your state named Theodore. And Theodore, who is joining us right now, would like to know, he said, I'm from Texas, and he's from Corpus Christi. Where are you from?
Yeah. Hey, Theodore. So I would go to Corpus Christi and just get stung by all the jellyfish on the beach constantly. That was my memory of Corpus Christi. I grew up in Austin, so pretty close to that. And then I went to college in Lubbock, Texas. Lubbock or leave it.
And Theodore will also like to know what made you choose the reference to the outsiders in the book title and character name.
Great question. You know, The Outsiders always meant a lot to me. That book, I read it in high school and several times after that. I've always felt like an outsider. And I actually got Stay Gold tattooed on me about a year after I transitioned. And when I think about what S.E. Hinton says in The Outsiders about what staying gold is, you know, Ponyboy gets a note from Johnny. And it's pretty much in my reading of it, stay innocent to the world around you, stay innocent to the violence and everything else. But when I think of the LGBT community, like there's no time for innocence, right? We're in survival mode with discrimination on every side of us. What I really wanted to capture with Stay Gold in my book is to remain yourself regardless of what's happening in the world around you and to have those allies and help and support and love to be yourself. And that's what Stay Gold means to me. So it's kind of my own viewing of it, an updated version.
Oh, thank you so much. And the question that I have for both Tobly and Perez is, what are your consistent sources of inspiration and motivation to continue to be creative? Because as a creative, sometimes you can face blockages. So how do you push through those?
Well, great. I'll answer your question. And then I have a question for Tobly myself, since we're all free-flowing. Inspiration for me comes through many different channels. Necessity is the mother of invention, as they say. But also just even yesterday and today, like ideas about possible new businesses or different ways about doing things have been exploding in my mind. And that's for me because I've been healthier. I was very unhealthy for the first 3 months of quarantine. Then I started to get back in the gym. And yesterday and today, after working out, I just had all these ideas come to me. Like the universe said, I'm going to reward you for putting the effort into yourself and working on your health and happiness. So a healthier body and a healthier mind can help with inspiration, and also just looking to others and their careers and how they've handled things and what they've done is also inspiring to me. I continually look at Joan Rivers' career as a great source of inspiration for me, because she was not only so talented, but also what a survivor. I mean, she had a career that spanned 6 decades. That's the goal and the dream for everybody. So Tobly, what inspires you? But I have a question because I forget who it was. There was a big debate on Twitter about authors and telling stories. For example, as a trans author, do you think that a non-trans author can write a book with a lead character being trans? Or should they write a book with the lead character being trans?
That's a big
if they're
question.
not trans themselves.
That's a big question, and a question a lot of publishing is deciding what's best. And I was talking about it early, but Young Adult World has an Own Voices initiative, OWN, where they want people with that perspective to write those stories. And I think those are really important. I think there should be more trans and non-binary characters coming up in different books and everything. But if you don't have that perspective, it can be more challenging to write the lead characters, right? You can bring them into your world and have them, but if you don't have the perspective, it can be more difficult. I'm not against it or for it. I think the world is figuring out what stories they want and who they want them from. And inspiration. So yes, being healthy and well, like Perez mentioned, is definitely when my mind is working the best. And I read an interview by a mystery writer a couple of years ago, and she had several kids and she had a day job, but she wanted to write mystery books. So she'd write at 4 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. till like 6 or 7 a.m. And then she would take care of her kids and send them to school and then go to work and then do it every single day. And the first draft of her book, she had to throw away because it wasn't even that good. So she got up again every day at 4 a.m. and wrote. And I read that article and I said, if she can do that, then I can find a couple hours every day to write, right? It's just about finding those hours. And sometimes I don't do much. Sometimes I just listen to music and read stuff. And sometimes I'm writing page after page, but it's creating that space. And sometimes it can feel selfish to take creative space, but it's so important.
That really also answers another question that we had in regards to your writing process. So overall, you would say for your writing process is just about creating the undisturbed space.
Yes, finding those hours. Mine are 8 to midnight. So I have cats. I don't have kids. So they're not very needy of my attention. I can put them away. But yes.
Who else do you have besides Bananas?
Bam Bam, but he's asleep at the top of I can't get him.
So the next question we have is going to be like probably our second to last or third to last. The next question is from Nicole B, and she would like to know, how did writing and publishing with the adverse space in the past and present?
Can you repeat that question real
Yeah,
quick?
you froze up for a minute,
Oh,
Joe. Can you
sorry.
repeat the question?
Mic check, mic check. 1 2 1 2. I'm good now?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, great. So the question is, how did writing and publishing Stay Gold help you move forward with the adversities you faced in the past and present?
You know what's interesting? I, like Pony, preferred to kind of say stealth in the world. I would walk into rooms and I passed, right? But now that I have a book, anytime someone says, oh, what's your book about? I have to come out to them as transgender, which has been really interesting in my life, to have to come out continually to people to explain the book. But it's kind of allowed me to live in a freedom and more squarely in who I am and passionate about the Stay Gold Fund and everything. So I think it's really centered me and given me purpose, which is really beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay, so for our last question, it is for both Tobly and Perez. It is, so it's twofold question. What is something that you wish you could have told your younger self? And what is something that you would like to share to the next generation?
Perez, you're first.
I would have, you know what, the funny thing is, I probably would not have listened though. Like, I probably would not have listened, but I wish I would have made my health a priority at a very young age, because, you know, like Oprah or like Jessica Simpson, I've yo-yoed my entire life. Even just this year, even just this year. For the most part, I think I've got it under control. But when I'm faced with very, very, very difficult circumstances, like we all have this year or last year, where I yo-yoed again because my mom had cancer. Thankfully, she's cancer-free now. But when you go through traumatic things, you often revert back to your old coping mechanisms, your old vices. And for me, that's eating and overeating. But after I decided to make my health and well-being a priority, I became a much happier person. So I wish I would have done that when I was young and much younger, because it's easier to maintain and to do and to keep that in your life if you start when you're younger. That's not to say that you can't do it when you're older. It's never too late to be a healthier, happier you. I just, for me, would have loved to have been a healthier, happier me even earlier. And the thing that I would tell young people is, the number one aspired to job these days that young people have is to be an influencer, a YouTuber. And that's awesome. I was the original one. But it's a job like anything else. The ones that are making a good amount of money doing that are the 1% of influencers, the very top, the hottest of the hot. Everybody else can make a living doing it if you put in the work. And that's really the message, right? It's really all about the work. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule, and even if you don't get exactly what you want, you might get something else. I have been taught in life that throughout my 42 years, the harder I work at A, B, or C, the better I get at it and the more results I get. So I would say it's all about the work. You gotta be willing to work harder than anybody else if you wanna be successful. That means everything must come secondary. A boyfriend, a girlfriend, your family, your friends. You have to have that tunnel vision and be laser focused to achieve whatever it is that you want to.
Wow, great advice. I'm gonna put some of that in my own back pocket. Probably.
Yes, all of that. And I think I would tell myself, like, it's just about keeping going, and feelings aren't facts. I believe in that one so much. Like, sometimes you can just be in a low place, especially with this quarantine and everything going on, but they will get better. Things will get better. What you're sitting in now, you won't be sitting in next week. You won't be sitting in a month. Every year, my life has gotten better and made more sense, and I found more joy. So really, it's just keep going. Just keep going.
All right. And so to wrap up, I would like to
We lost.
Your sound keeps freezing, Bill.
I'm so sorry. I'm really helpless when it comes down to technology.
You're
You know what I'm
back.
saying?
You're back.
So,
No, I am the helpless one in the group.
all of my friends call me grandma. So, all right. So basically, we would like to know, how can we support you and where can we follow you?
All right. I'm on Instagram the most, Tobly McSmith. Please find my book in the library. Find it at your local bookstore. There's an audio book and an ebook too.
Thank you, Perez.
How do we find you?
Oh, Beatrice is going to close us out right after Perez.
I'm everywhere as well. I'm really loving TikTok these days, as the youngsters are. So make sure you're following me on TikTok as well. And I bought a fancy URL to direct you to all the places. In addition to the library. Hopefully the libraries carry my book. I don't know. I might be banned from libraries because of the cover. Who knows? But you can go to PerezHiltonBook.com. That's PerezHiltonBook.com.
Thank you so much. And Bia, you could take us out.
Okay.
Let them know how they follow us and support us.
Thank
I'd
you.
just like to quickly thank Rachel, who is the LGBT outreach liaison for the Newark Public Library, who is doing the hosting of the Zoom meeting. And she's a great supporter of the center. We do a lot of things together, and we will continue to do that. And Rachel, I'm sure the book won't be banned, right?
Oh, definitely not. Libraries don't believe in the banning, so.
That's right. That's
Thank you.
that's
When I'm
right. All kinds of
Now everything's
ideas.
on hold. But I will put all these books on our ordering.
All right, everyone. The last question that somebody did last night is, what's your TikTok? Correct.
Oh, it's just at Perez Hilton.
All right.
All right, thank y'all so much. This has been
But
fun.
thank you all for
Thank
coming.
you.
It's been a really interesting conversation. I think it was very informative. I love having the young people on to ask questions about writing. And, you know, for some young people, writing can be, you know, very therapeutic, a way for you to let out some of your feelings kind of privately without judgment. I knew myself as a young person, I used to write quite a bit, you know, on and off. I'd have diaries or journals, whatever you want to call them. And so I thank you for those words of wisdom and for sharing your process tonight and how this book came to be. I also would like to, as Jill said, direct folks to our Newark LGBTQ Center, where you can find us online on our website. We also have a Instagram page, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. We're going to wrap up.
All right.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Peace
Yeah.
and love. Peace and love.
Right.
Yeah.
Happy Newark Pride.
Happy Pride.
Yes, happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Of course. See you later.
That was awesome. Theodore, thanks for
Glad to be here. It was a really great event.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Awesome. Well, have a great night.
You too. See ya.